Fuck. Every time, man. Alright. Good morning, goddammit. Piss and Vinegar Day 54? Not sure. I'm pretty sure it's 54. Back in rear delts. Same as ever. Good day today. Really digging this leverage machine. I wanted to talk about dads today. So, this is an interesting topic for me, especially now that my dad has passed away. He passed away earlier this year in a kind of tragic way. He was an alcoholic, and he slowly killed himself over the course of a few years. He had basically what is, in short, he had alcohol induced dementia, which is a very fucked up way to go. But I wanted to talk about dads today because I was thinking about him today, and dads are extremely important, right? They're so unbelievably important, and nowadays the world is pushed towards not having good dads, and it's, we're seeing a lot of different outcomes from that, a lot of poor outcomes from not having dads. But I also wanted to say that, I had a good dad. He, by all intents and purposes, he was a good dude. He had his flaws like a lot of dads do, especially dads from the generation that my dad grew up in. And my dad was an Australian, so Australians had a strange culture. Any man who's 55 to 80 years old right now is a very different Australian man to what Australians like now. Men back then were very tough, and their dads typically had been in World War II, and due to that, their dads were pretty hardcore dudes. They had trauma from the war, which is then passed down to my dad, and a lot of times the sins of the fathers go in reverse. My dad's dad, my grandfather, was a very angry, brutal man, and thus in turn my dad became an extremely gentle kind of hippie. I mean, he was a bit of a hard cunt at the same time. He had his history. He'd done some pretty crazy stuff. But generally with his children, he was very, very gentle, and almost too gentle. It wasn't authoritarian enough. And what I've taken from this, essentially, in short, is, you have to learn from your parents' mistakes rather than following them. And he did that, but he did it in the worst. He did it in, not the worst, but he did it in the hyper-exaggerated other form of the spectrum. And I'm seeing now the sins of my fathers, in the sense that my grandfather was too, brutal dictator sort of personality. My father was too loose and wasn't, kind of brutal enough, I suppose. And then the lesson for me is then to be somewhere in the middle. Be a kind father when you need to be a gentle, man, but also when it is required, raise your voice, make sure your kids do the chores, these things. So I was thinking about this today, and for you guys out there who do have a good father, who one of the fathers that doesn't have an alcohol problem or a drug problem or violence problem or any of these problems that a lot of dads do have, cherish your dad while you can, because you never know when he's going to go. And even after the fact, I had a lot of issues thinking about my dad when he was alive. Like, why wasn't he this way? Why wasn't he this way? And it's not until they're gone that you realize they were trying. Like, people who can only do their best, and obviously their best isn't always their actual best sometimes. But I was thinking about how, my dad never beat me, never did anything violent or aggressive. He didn't fuck me up like a lot of dads do to their kids. And I was really just being kind of a little wuss about it. Why wasn't my dad this and that? Well, they're not. So cherish what your dad is. If your dad is a good man and he's gentle and he provides and generally is just overall a good force, don't get hung up about any of the bullshit that, he could have this though, he could have that. I mean, this is the grass is always greener. So if you have a dad, cherish him. If you don't have a dad, use that energy to become a great dad yourself one day. I think if you didn't have a dad, or if you had a really shitty dad, that is the sins of the fathers, in the sense that now you have to become a great dad. You have to make up for the unfortunate lack of the lack of dad that you didn't have. Give that to your kids one day. Be the best dad you can be. Live through them, and essentially, I mean, a lot of times parents live through their kids. That's why we have kids, is to live on through immortality. And part of that is whatever you didn't have as a kid, you should give that to your kids. So the things my dad didn't provide, or my dad's, because dads is all the way into ancestors of grandfathers, because all those dads are what made your dad what he is, and your dad is who makes you who you are. So hopefully this makes coherent sense. But yeah, dads today, that's kind of it. I just wanted to talk about dads. And if you have a great dad, cherish him. If you have an average dad, still cherish him. If you have a shit dad, learn from his mistakes. If you don't have a dad at all, become a great dad. Yeah, that's it. So back day, my back day is so short, man. I love back day, and because it's so fast. It's like 4 or 5 exercises, and I think I need to add one more for my rhomboids. I've been doing sort of my accessory movement is either a pullover or a unilateral cable row for my rhomboids, and they do 2 different things. Really, I should be doing them both. So all my exercise program, all my programs except for my chest day have compound movements that get switched out. So, my back day has a compound row in the V-bar row that you saw at the start of this video, and then it has the Yates row that I have on my B day. And then my pull down variation is a pull down on B day and a chin up on A day. And that way, with these compound movements where you're trying to linear progress consistently, you need to have some semblance of variation. Otherwise, you will slow down progression, because if you just keep trying to progress the same movement every single week, especially when you're in maintenance or a cut or whatever, it's going to be tough to keep continue linear progressing. Whereas if you do numerous compound movements, if one movement it turns out to be inferior than the other one, at least you're doing this other one that's actually better, but also you're doing numerous exercises, and that way you're not trying to progress the same thing every single week. But then the accessories, like the rear delt raises I'm doing right now, pullovers, unilateral cable rows to hit the rhomboids, these things I can just do them every week, because the progression's not so much what I'm looking for here. It's not the most bang for the buck movement, it's an accessory. It's to make up for what the compound movements don't isolate, like the rhomboids, like the rear delts, the serratus or the lower lats for the pullover. So those movements can stay there every single week. This is what I'm finding now, especially with high intensity training. And then the compound movements should be switched out a little bit. I mean, on my chest day, I do the same chest day every time, even with the compound movements, because only certain compound movements really do my chest, 2 of which are dips and incline press. Barbells don't feel great. I don't have enough machines or anything to really variant. So for right now, I'm just going to do the incline press and dips on chest day. But also my pressing movements are improving so fast, I'm not really worrying about linear progression right now there. So yeah, that's a kind of a little tidbit for your programming if you're doing high intensity. I am getting thick. My maintenance phase has been a huge failure, but also success in the sense that I'm getting big, I'm getting strong, I'm getting big quick. So I'm getting fluffy. My hips and waist, they get real fluffy quick, just because that's where my fat stores go. Slow metabolism. I've been eating pasta. I fucked up my maintenance phase, but that's fine. I'm just going to slow down my bulk now to a main gain. And now I'm just doing my nucleus overload for traps, 100 reps in total, and then I do my right arm pronation to keep strengthening up my right arm for arm wrestling. Very simple. But yeah, my maintenance phase, I'm just going to, I've basically done a huge bulk through my maintenance phase. The last 3 weeks I've gained 5 kilos. 2 of that's probably muscle, 2 of that's probably fat, kilo of that might be water weight or glucose, glycogen, etc. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to slow down my bulk. I'm going to do a pretty short bulk, this bulk anyway. I'm going to do a bulk for about 3 months. And then when summer hits, it's going to be too hot to be all fluffy. So I'm going to do a 3-month cut over summer. And then after summer, next year basically, because I'm in Australia, everything's flipped around. I'm going to do a 6 to 8 month bulk throughout autumn and winter. That way, one, it gets freezing where I live because I live in the mountains. So it's good to be bulking through those seasons. I really fucked up my cut this year. Well, the last 2 years I've been cutting, really, because I ended the cut when it starts getting hot. And I cut through winter and I was freezing all the fucking time. So I really need to reverse that and make sure I bulk through the colder months and cut through the hotter months, because yeah, it's just too cold where I live. So yeah, it's gonna be a short bulk, then a 3-month cut. Gonna get really fucking lean next cut, and then I'm going to do a long bulk, and then big fuck off bulk, get huge, and then do another cut later next year and get shredded once more. And I'll make a video planning out this whole thing, giving you the ideas of what I'm doing. Got to pull my pants up here, man. I got that Hank Hill looking bum. So yeah, pasta. Do not eat pasta in your maintenance phase. That is a big fucking mistake. I gained way too much weight way too quickly. And the maintenance phase is arguably the most important phase in any, diet, because that's when people really rebound fast, which I did. But I nipped it in the bud now. This next 2 weeks, I'm going to be in kind of a maintenance / maybe even slight deficit, just to kind of stay somewhat lean and then start main gaining from there. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of it for today. This shrug experiment I'm going to be doing for the next 6 months, right? So it'll be interesting to see what it does. My traps are actually pretty big from the back, right? But from the front, they are very small because I have high clavicles. So a lot of times you can have big muscles, but the insertions and the bones around them really nerf how big they look. So because my clavicles are really high, it gives the illusion of small traps from the front. So I'm trying to really get my upper traps as big as possible. And now I'm finishing with my pronation for my right arm. And I'm going to rotate 3 different exercises. So I'm going to do, every day I'm training my pronation. So I'm going to do a wrist pronation variant. And this is for my thumb strength and my wrist pronators muscle strength. And then, and then tomorrow it'll be more of a compound pronation movement. And then it might be somewhere in the middle. On the 3rd day, I'm just going to rotate those 3 exercises on my daily pronation. So yeah, this felt pretty good. Need to get my pronation strong because I got small hands, and obviously, again, for you guys that are watching who aren't into arm wrestling, you might not know what the fuck I'm doing here. Don't worry about it. It's just trying to get strong at arm wrestling and get big forearms whilst doing it, and it's part of the nucleus overload experiment. It's also part of being able to see if I can take a muscle to failure every single day without overtraining. All right, that's it for today. See you guys tomorrow for more Piss and Vinegar. Bye bye.